All right, let's head to the main event of the evening. The reason everyone is likely going to be buying this, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. If you have not followed along, this is the trilogy. This is the number 3. The first fight came back. It was before Conor was a mega star or anything, but he was certainly on the up. He was certainly on the come up, and he dispatched of Dustin pretty easily at that point. Well, the fast forward to January of 2021, where Dustin Poirier has really kind of come together as a fighter, and he actually puts it on Conor McGregor pretty good at UFC 257 in January, really taking advantage of leg kicks, really kind of neutralizing anything that was going to be Conor's out in that fight, and was eventually able to finish him in the second round. Here we come into this one with Conor McGregor having only fought 3 times since 2018. 2 of those being losses. We just talked about the Dustin Poirier loss. Of course, he lost to Khabib Nurmagomedov in 2018. That's sandwiched between a win against Donald Cerrone that, I think they kind of just teed that one up for him to get a win on his resume. Donald, they know that Cowboy's just going to push forward and fight exactly the fight that Conor wanted him to fight, and that's exactly what happened, and he gets knocked out in 40 seconds. So here we have Conor entering, Dan, and let me start with this before we even get into the breakdown of this fight. Do you have any concerns whatsoever about Conor's motivation? Because we know he just sold his whiskey company for $400 million. Now, he's not going to get all of that money, but even if he gets half of it, that's $200 million to go along with the couple of $100 million he's made off of these other, fights and ventures and things and stuff that he's got going on. And it's different with a guy like, Floyd Mayweather, who is fighting to keep that 0 in his column. Like, I'm fighting to be the best fighter of all time. I want to keep the undefeated record. And so you can at least understand the motivation with a guy like Mayweather. And then you look at Conor, where he's going to walk into this cage and he'll probably make a couple of $1 million for this fight. But after you've just made a couple $100 million, is that enough reason to, get in the gym and give it a go, as hard a go as you can every single day?
I think he's got to be motivated just because he knows with a loss, things are probably going to start drying up. McGregor kind of transcended the sport with the Mayweather stuff and the money fights and talking about fighting the boxers and stuff. And he was kind of the guy to do it. But, as we've seen with Anderson Silva and Vitor Belfort and other guy, and even Ben Askren, you don't need to be a McGregor to get these big money fights anymore. So I think he was the guy that they thought, would bring kind of the celebrity combat sports industry together. But, we've seen it really is kind of any name can take that over. And if he loses twice to Poirier, it's not even like his bread and butter, fighting in the UFC. He's kind of odd man out. He's always going to command a big payday. He's always going to drive pay-per-views. I think he can even always get big opponents and title fights as long as he's a win or 2 away. But losing 2 to Poirier, especially with the inactivity, it really is a must-win spot for him if he wants to be the Conor McGregor that kind of the sports world at large thinks of. He can go back to being a good UFC contender, but I don't think he's happy just being that. And right. If he loses to Poirier here, that's all he's going to be probably.
Let's talk about Poirier now. So we're talking about a guy with 7 wins, 1 loss, and 1 no contest since 2017. So he has been active, and he's been active in a very high level with winning a bunch of very high-profile fights. I mean, we're talking Anthony Pettis, Justin Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez, Max Holloway, or Dan Hooker, and then, of course, Conor McGregor as well. That only loss coming to Nurmagomedov, which, by the way, everyone lost to him. So it's not really that big of a deal to nothing to really hang your head about when you talk about losing to Khabib. So let's just talk a little bit about what you've seen from Dustin Poirier over that, stretch here over the last 3 or 4 years, where he, it does seem to me anyway from, looking at his early career, which, by the way, he's always been a successful fighter. He never went on, any massive losing streak or anything like that. But you really do kind of see a different guy and a guy that has kind of come into his own.
Yeah, he's got the swagger. He's got the confidence. He was always a very good fighter. And, you read off some of the wins he has. And of course, that's going to give you confidence. But I think when, he headlined an event and took on McGregor and knowing kind of the whole world is against you, at least in probably your own company, the UFC was probably banking on a McGregor win there. I think he's got just the confidence, the swagger. But I mean, his skills just continually keep improving. His striking, it's always been good. It's just so pinpoint now. The leg kicks. The one thing I worry about in this fight is both guys' durability. They're willing to eat some punches, to trade some punches, and with their careers getting a little long now, I think kind of a lot of that damage is probably starting to pile up, but. For a guy like Poirier, kind of, understanding that that's just part of the risk and embracing it, it served him well in recent years, and it served him well in the first McGregor fight, or the most recent McGregor fight.
So as you mentioned, you talked about the world watching. Well, the world definitely took notice after that fight because Dustin Poirier was about a plus 250, plus 260 underdog going into that fight against Conor McGregor. And he enters, as we record this, as a minus 130 favorite over at BetMGM. Conor McGregor getting plus 110. Dan, I want to give you a thought here, and I want to get what you think on this before we get into your actual fight breakdown here. But I think this is important for people because, like I said, we look at everything through a betting lens. With this being the first big fight, kind of back in Vegas, it's going to be, like I said, a crazy weekend in town. So even outside of the people who are going to the fights themselves, there's going to be a ton of people in town to go to other things that are happening. The popularity of Conor McGregor, when you see his name on the bet slip as opposed to Dustin Poirier, whatever craziness we're going to get between now and fight time as far as some quotes or something from Conor, or, what he might say, what he might do. I always, in these McGregor fights, if I'm going to go the opposite way, and if you wanted to bet Dustin Poirier, do you think the thing to do is to hold off until closer to the fight here? Because you're going to get so many people who decide last minute to bet this fight, and they're always going to bet on Conor.
Yeah, I mean, the McGregor fans are going to be waking up at about 5 p.m. before the fight and run into the sports book to get their bets, and I think... we've seen it I think people just want to ride the McGregor bandwagon and have a McGregor betting ticket. So, yeah, I mean, it's been surprising to see so much money coming in on Poirier, kind of pushing the line down. But I fully expect it to bounce back on Saturday before the fight. So, yeah, if you're betting Poirier, I would probably wait until the very last minute. That's probably, you may have gotten a better line before and it's starting to go away, but it'll probably bounce back right back before the fight. So if you're going with Dustin on this one, I definitely would wait till the last minute.
All right, so let's get your analysis here again as we are recording this. Poirier a minus 130 favorite, Conor McGregor a plus 110 underdog. How do you see this trilogy fight going down?
Yeah, I really feel like it's a kind of a coin flip at this time. I'd love to get that Poirier line from last time. I am probably leaning toward him. At the current odds, it's, there may not be a ton of value there. I live here in Virginia where we've got 7 sports books who all launched this year and they're all fighting for market share. So we have a ton of promos out here where basically whether you want to vote or bet Poirier or bet McGregor, you can find a good line. I think one book had, plus 150 odds on either guy. There's a lot of McGregor prop bets like at MGM, via stoppage is plus 135, McGregor in round 1's plus 350. So there's a lot of ways to play it. Personally, I'm really big on the under 2.5 rounds. I just think these guys are going to crack early, throw leather and start pounding away. I think one of them eventually is going to drop. Both guys have suffered a lot of knockdowns kind of in the past 5 or 6 years. They've both proven to be hittable. I think they know each other well enough to know how to land on each other. So again, I really like the under 2.5 rounds, but with it being a 5-round fight too, it's really, you're going to pay a price for it, minus 375 for the fight not going to decision. But I think that could be a really good parlay piece with some of the other guys on the card too.
Yeah, I am. I'm with you. I kind of like some of the other ways of going about this. About if there is a way at any of the books that you bet, I'm on Dustin Poirier's side as well. Like I have a pretty good lean towards him in this one, and there are options out there where you can just bet Poirier by finish. Not necessarily. You don't have to necessarily pick KO or TKO.
Mm-hmm.
You can just get him just to win by finish, and if that were the case, you throw in the submission angle here, and I think that obviously favors Dustin Poirier as well in this fight. So I do like Poirier just by a finish of some sort, and I kind of like you, man. I kind of like this thing to be done fairly. I'm not going to say really early, but I just don't see this thing going to decision for a couple different reasons. One, I mean, listen, as world class of an athlete as Conor McGregor is, there have been questions about his cardio, certainly as we get into later rounds and fights. And that's going to certainly benefit Poirier either from a finish standpoint or a submission standpoint or whatever it might be. And then also, listen, I think Conor fairly is pretty sure that his way of winning this is knocking Poirier out, and I'm with you. Like, I think he comes out guns a-blazing and tries to get this thing done in one of the first couple of rounds so he doesn't have to tread into the deep waters.
Yeah, and we've had so many events without fans, and the few that we had, the atmosphere was just so much more electric. And I think, again, it's a McGregor fight. It's a bad blood match. I think the crowd is going to be so into this. It's going to amp the guys up even more. So I think they were going to come out wild anyway, but you throw that crowd in and everyone being back in Vegas, it's going to be an electric atmosphere. I definitely expect fireworks.
Dan, where can everybody find your work these days and find your commentary on the Twitter machine?
Yeah, I've been doing most of my writing for Play Virginia and Play Maryland. Sports betting's getting really big and exciting out here in the neck of the woods. So that's where most of it appears. And then I'm also on Twitter, Dan Stupp, DANNSTUPP.
Guys, this is going to be an awesome fight card, as we mentioned. As we sit right now, minus 130 Dustin Poirier, plus 110 Conor McGregor. If you're leaning the Poirier side, now, things could change, and it could not go the way that we've seen basically every other Conor McGregor fight go in the history of mankind. But I would imagine the Conor McGregor money comes in late. Most casual fans, I should say, are not betting fights early in the week. They are actually betting the fights right before the fights happen. So as we sit here on a Thursday, I'm not too worried about the minus 130 on Poirier. I'll be holding out. I think we're going to get much better number. I think we might get 115, maybe even make this thing a coin flip. I don't think it'll flip all the way. I don't think it'll flip all the way to him being an underdog again, but I could see it getting all the way to being almost a coin flip again. So that's the way I would play that if you're going with Dustin Poirier. And if you do want to go McGregor side, I'd probably say go ahead and get in on it as soon as possible, because I think the line is only going to get worse for you. Yeah. Guys, if you want to follow Dan, again, at Dan Stupp. If you want to follow me, at Matt Brown M2. Thanks to our friends over at BetMGM for this one, and good luck on all your bets this weekend.